Before I begin, I just want to give a quick reminder that customers should base their purchasing decisions on products and services that are generally available. Hi everyone, my name is Aditya and I'm a lead developer advocate here at Salesforce. In this final video, let's talk about security. So security is a part and parcel of each and every step that you take when building an app. So look back at everything you've learned so far. Whenever you were creating fields, defining tabs, creating apps, assigning page layouts, there was one step in the wizard that allowed you to define security. So before we begin, a quick disclaimer. So security is a slightly tricky concept to understand. So feel free to pause this video and rewatch certain pieces to get a better understanding. Security in Salesforce is not a single concept. There are multiple layers to it. So first, let's look at what those layers are. To make it hopefully easier to understand, let me give you an example that all of you can relate to. Imagine you are at school and then you have to go to the staff room to submit your homework notebook. So let's equate the staff room as a Salesforce org. So the first question to ask yourself is, who can enter the staff room? It is generally either a teacher or a student. Let's equate that to users in Salesforce. Every person who needs access to a Salesforce org must have a user record in that org. Next, when can you enter a staff room? Typically, only during school timings. Similarly, in Salesforce, you can define when a user can log into the org and from which IP address. That is an example of the first layer of security, which is the org level security. The IP and login restrictions is just one of the many things that you can control at the org level. Another one is password policies, about which we'll see in just a bit. Next, once you enter a staff room, what can you do? Imagine there is a table and there are a few chairs. Can you go sit in a chair? Can you move the tables and chairs around wherever you want? No, but a teacher can. So there are certain things certain users can do and certain users cannot do. In Salesforce, let's equate this to different features. For example, can a user access the Salesforce setup? Can a user create a new Apex class? Can a user export data? And so on. So these are some of the many features that you can control users' access to. All of this comes under the next layer, which is the persona layer, which has the administrative and user permissions that define what a user can and cannot do. Things like app and tab access, page layout assignments, all of them also come under this persona layer. Next, inside the staff room, imagine there are two cupboards. One cupboard stores your homework notebooks, and the other cupboard stores the exam question papers. Let's equate these cupboards to objects in Salesforce. Now, as a student, you can only access the homeworks cupboard. You cannot access the question papers cupboard, but a teacher can do that, which in Salesforce equates to certain users being able to see some objects, but not others. Now in the homework cupboard, you can just put your notebook. You cannot remove notebooks. How does that translate to Salesforce? It means you can only create records in that object, but you cannot delete records from that object. So that is the third layer of security, which is object and field level security. That controls the CRUD permissions for an object, where CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. So whether or not you can create records on an object, update records on an object, and so on. That's what CRUD is. This layer also lets you control field level security, meaning that on an object, whether a field is visible to a user and is it editable by the user. So those two are controlled by field level security. Finally, back in the homework cupboard, imagine this. Can you open and look at everyone's notebooks when the teacher is looking? or just yours. Generally, it's just your notebook. But sometimes you might take your teacher's permission and open your friend's notebooks also. So in Salesforce, these notebooks can be treated as records in the object. And that brings us to the final layer of security, which is the record layer, which allows you to control what records of an object a user has access to. So this is the layered architecture of Salesforce. Now, how do you implement this? So the first three layers are implemented using profiles and permission sets. The final layer, which is the record layer, is a bit complex. It is implemented using organization-wide defaults, role hierarchy, sharing rules, and manual sharing. Now let's look at all of this in action. So this is the car showroom app that we've been working on over the past 4 episodes. Now we need to give sales reps access to this app. So the first thing I should do is create a user for them. So from setup, I navigate to users and click on new user. I'll give the user a name and enter their email address. Email address is where their password reset emails and notifications go to. Now there are a few important fields. First is the username. This should be globally unique, just like your Gmail ID. No one else in the world has the same ID as you. This is what a person uses to log into Salesforce. Next is profile. As you've seen, this is what controls most of what the user can do across 3 different layers. There are a bunch of standard profiles that come out of the box, but you can create custom ones too, which we will in just a bit. For now, let me just choose an existing one. And you can always update it, by the way. Then we have the active checkbox, which is set to true. So typically, a user can only log in if their user record is active. For example, let's say the sales rep leaves the company. You can just deactivate their user and they can't log in anymore. Now it is important to remember that you cannot delete users. You can only inactivate them. There are a bunch of other fields which have nothing to do with security, so we will skip them. And before saving, notice this checkbox. If this is checked, it automatically generates a welcome email to the user, which also includes a link using which they can set their password. Let's now save it. So we are done with the first part of security setup, that is defining users. Next, let's create a profile. From setup, search for profiles and click new. Instead of starting with a blank slate, you can clone an existing profile. Now it is a best practice to clone the minimum access profile and go from there. So in the profile, you can first see the page layout assignment section. Remember the page layout assignment screen where you assigned layouts to different profiles from the previous video? It is the same one, but it's just that you're looking at the assignment from a profiles point of view instead of a layouts point of view. Next, you have the field level security section. All the objects in the org will be listed here. If you click on view next to an object, let's say the vehicle custom object, you can see a list of fields. For each field, you can control whether a user can read the value of that field and edit the value of that field. If you just give read access, it is a read-only field. In the previous video, we discussed that the discount approval status must be read-only for a sales rep. So here is where I set that permission. Similarly, I set up field level security for all the fields that I need. Next, I can control which apps the user can access. So I click on edit and give the necessary access. Next are the tab settings. This allows me to control whether or not a tab can be seen by a user. I make the required changes. And then comes the administrative permissions. There are a ton of permissions that control every single aspect of Salesforce. For example, author Apex controls whether or not this user can create Apex classes. View setup and configuration controls whether or not a user can access the setup user interface, and so many more. But there are two very important settings here, that is view all data and modify all data, which essentially override all of the security you put in place for the record layer. So if these are checked, it means that a user can view and edit all the records in the system. So keep in mind, these permissions should never be given to normal users. There is one more setting called edit read-only fields. This will allow users to edit read-only fields, irrespective of whether you set them as read-only at the profile level or the page layout level. Now in your Trailhead playgrounds, you generally are logged in as a system administrator, and the system administrator profile has all of these permissions checked. Below are more permissions called user permissions. You can read about them later, but there are many of them also. Next, we have the object permissions. For each object, you can choose whether a user can read, create, edit, or delete the records. Even here, you have the view all and modify all permissions, but these apply to just this object instead of all the objects. Since a sales rep needs access to vehicles, I will give them access, but I won't give them the delete permission. Next, you have password policies. If you remember, this is the first thing that we discussed in the organization layer. The password expires in controls, how often a user has to change their password. And the next setting allows you to define a rule saying that a new password cannot be any of the 3 previous passwords, and so on. Finally, let's save our new profile. Now, if you scroll down, there are a few more settings. Login hours lets you control when a user can log in. Login IP ranges can control where the user can log in from. And this is how you can enforce users to log into a VPN before logging into Salesforce. So that's profile. You typically create a profile based on business functions. That is, what's the common thing a group of people can do? For example, this sales rep profile can be assigned to all the sales representatives in the company because they have something in common. But imagine this. There might be 2 sales reps who might need extra permissions. So do we create another profile for them? No. We create permission sets, which is very similar to profiles. From setup, you can again navigate to permission sets. It allows you to define the same set of permissions like an object, an app, etc. The only difference between a profile and permission set, using a permission set, you only define the extra permissions you need to give to a user on top of what the profile already gives them. So a profile plus 1 or more permission sets equals the final level of access a user has. So let's say the 2 sales reps need access to delete vehicles. For that, I create a permission set, and in object settings for the vehicle object, I just select delete. And then I click on manage assignments. That lets me add this permission set to users. Now, if I go to a user record, I can see they have a profile that gives them create, read, and update access on the vehicle, but an extra permission set gives them delete access. So in a way, permission set allows me to give more permissions at a user level that can be revoked whenever you want. So that covers the org, persona, object, and field level access. Now coming to the record layer, the first thing to remember is that every record in Salesforce has an owner. It generally defaults to the person creating the record unless you add some automation to change it. So typically, as long as your profile allows you to, you can do whatever you want with the records that you own because it is your record. And at the record layer, you actually define how others can interact with the records that you own. In the school and homework example earlier, you can do whatever you want with your homework notebook. But what you can do with others' notebooks is what the record layer controls. For that, there are different settings, and here is a summary of all of those. First and foremost, at the bottom, there is organization-wide defaults, or OWD in short, which defines what is the level of access that users have to records that they do not own. To define this, from setup, navigate to sharing settings. Here is the first section, which is organization-wide defaults. So again, for each object, you define the access level. That is either private, public read-only, or public read-write. Private says that you have full access on your records, but others cannot see your records, which means you cannot see others' records as well. Public read-only says that you have full rights on your records and others can see your records but cannot edit them, which means even you can't edit others' records, but you can see them. Finally, public read-write, which means you have full rights on your records and others can see and edit your records as well. In our car showroom app, let's take the leads for example. As a sales rep, I work very hard to get a few leads, so I create them in Salesforce and I become the records owner. Now I don't want others to see the lead on which I'm working on until I change their status to converted, just as an example. So in this case, the OWD for leads is private because no one else should be able to see my leads. But what about my manager? They should be able to see the leads that I'm working on because they need to know my workload. So that's where the second setting of record layer comes into picture, which is role hierarchy. Role hierarchy is simple. It's a management tree basically that is there in every company. So you have a manager who has a manager and so on. What role hierarchy does is very simple. Any user with a role above yours has the same level of access that you have to a record. So the records that you can see, your manager also can see. The records you can edit, the manager also can edit. Again, as long as the manager's profile has the relevant object level access. So the rule here is pretty simple. Record access comes into picture only if you have object level access. So from setup, I go to role hierarchy and here I can see the management tree. So we have the sales manager and under the sales manager, I see a sales rep. Now back on the user object, you can assign a role to a user. So to the sales rep user, I'm going to assign the sales rep role. And to the manager, I assign the sales manager role. So now the manager user has the same level of access to records as the sales rep user. But wait, when working on approval processes, we defined that approvals have to go to a user's manager. Is that the same as role hierarchy? Nope. The user record along with the role also has a manager field in it. And this is where you assign a particular manager to the record. So here is how role hierarchy and the manager user field work. Let's say you have 2 users who have the role sales manager and 5 users have the role sales rep. Now using the manager lookup field, these 2 users report to manager A and these 3 users report to manager B. So now if any of these 2 users request an approval from their manager, it goes to A. If these 3 request for approval, it goes to B. This is purely because of the manager lookup field. Now let's assume each of the sales reps own 2 records. Now how many records will manager A have access to? It is actually 10, not 6. Manager B also has access to 10 records, not 6. That is because the role hierarchy purely considers the roles of users, irrespective of what the manager field contains. So in terms of role hierarchy, there are 2 users in the sales manager role and 5 users in the sales rep role. And the manager role is above the sales rep role according to the hierarchy. And because of this, any user in the manager role has access to records of any user in the sales rep role. So imagine there is one more sales manager. They also have access to 10 records. Now, what if you don't want to automatically grant access to people above in the role hierarchy? You can uncheck the grant access using hierarchies checkbox. Notice you can only do this for custom objects and not standard objects. So that was organization-wide defaults and role hierarchy. Because the OWD is private for the lead object, records owned by a sales rep can be seen by the sales manager as long as the grant access using hierarchies checkbox is checked. But how can we allow other sales reps to access each other's records? Meaning that how do the users at the same level of role access each other's records? How can we also allow other users, let's say from the loan department, to access lead records? That's where the next setting in the record layer security comes into play, sharing rules. Now, if you remember the use case I was talking about earlier, I don't want others to see the lead that I'm working on until the status is changed to converted. Once the lead status is converted, I want everyone to see it, meaning others in my role, the loan department, and basically everybody else. Back in the same sharing settings page, below the OWD, you can define the sharing rules for each object. Let's go ahead and define a rule for the lead object. Give it a name, and then define which records to share. Whether you want to share the records owned by someone or the records that meet a specific criteria, irrespective of who owns them. In our case, I don't care who the owner is. If the lead status is converted, I want everyone to see it. So I select based on criteria and specify the criteria. Then I select who to share it with. I have different options. For now, I'll select roles and subordinates and choose CEO because that makes sure everyone has access to the records. So let's say if I only wanted the loan department to see the converted records, but not my colleagues in the same role, I would have just chosen the role loan officer. That way, other than me and people in the role above me and loan officers, no one else can see my lead records. Finally, I say what level of access I should give others. I say read only. One very important thing to remember is that using roles and sharing rules, you can only open up access to records. You cannot restrict access to records. So if you have a requirement where everyone can see a record in Salesforce except for one person, you cannot define OWD as public read-only and then restrict access to that one person. You will have to define OWD as private and then give access to everyone using sharing rules except to that one person. So all of this is a setup you do to automate sharing. But you can still manually share records with others, which is the final option in the record layer. So let's say you're going on leave and you want your friend to work on the lead until you come back. So you can just go to the lead record, click on share, and share it with them. It's that simple. Let's now look at one final example to completely understand the sharing model. So in our car showroom app, we have the vehicle object And since everybody should be able to see and edit all the vehicles, I have given the OWD as public read-write. But when it comes to test drives, I should only be able to edit the test drive records that I own, and others should only be able to see the test drive records that I own, but not edit them. So another user shouldn't log in and just change the time of my test drive. So ideally for test drives, the OWD should be public read only. That makes sure others can see my records but not edit them, correct? But when you see here, the only option I have is controlled by parent. Why? That is because the vehicle and test drive objects are in a master detail relationship. The child is completely dependent on the master, so a child doesn't have an owner of its own, which is why the child's sharing settings depend on their parent, who has an owner. In a lookup relationship, on the other hand, both child and parent have owners, so you will be able to control sharing individually. So what do I do now? As mentioned earlier, you can only open up access to records using sharing rules. So the only thing I can do is make the OWD of vehicle as public read only, so that the test drive OWD also is public read only, because it is dependent on parent. And because we decreased the OWD of a vehicle, we need to create a sharing rule that shares the vehicle records with all users with read-write access. I hope you got a hang of the principles involved in defining security. But we are not done yet. Security, once defined, is applicable everywhere in Salesforce, not just the UI. In the previous episode, you've learned about Apex and Lightning Web Components. So let's now see how security affects them. First, let's take a look at this Apex class. One important thing about Apex is it runs in system mode, meaning that it doesn't care about what permissions the running user has. If you write a query, irrespective of whether the user has CRUD and FLS on the object, it returns the data. Which is good in some cases, like when you're writing a background job or something, but it is bad when logged in users are interacting with your Apex methods and custom components that you create. So how do I enforce security in Apex? It's actually pretty simple. In a query, I just need to add the with security enforced clause, which automatically makes sure this query respects the logged in user's CRUD permissions and FLS. Meaning that if a user doesn't have access to either the object or any of the fields that are being queried, this query throws an exception. When inserting or updating records, there is a different method to use called strip inaccessible, which automatically removes the fields a user doesn't have access to from the object variable, but you can learn more about it later. So that was object and field level access. But how do I enforce record level access? When defining a class, you can simply specify the with sharing clause, which makes sure the sharing rules and organization-wide defaults that you defined take effect. And the queries that are there within your class only return records that are accessible by the logged in user. So the with sharing clause controls record level access. That is, it respects OWD and sharing rules. And the with security enforced clause enforces CRUD and FLS. Now, did you know that Salesforce has a ton of APIs that let you interact with data and metadata? In fact, every time you create an object, you can interact with it using APIs. So here is an example. I'm in Postman where I'm querying the vehicle data using a Salesforce API. So I haven't created this endpoint manually or enabled a setting or something like that. The moment I created an object, I'm able to access that object using this endpoint. Now, why am I telling you this? It is because these APIs also respect CRUD, FLS, and sharing rules. To access these APIs, you of course need valid user credentials. And based on the credentials that you use, the endpoint only returns the data and fields the user has access to. Finally, talking about Lightning Web Components, You've already seen that you can access data from either Apex or Lightning Data Service adapters. And you've already seen how to enforce security in Apex. When it comes to these Lightning Data Service adapters, they are internally based on the APIs that we just spoke about. So when you use these adapters to retrieve data, you only get back the fields and results that you're supposed to see. Let's quickly recap what we have seen so far. First, we've learned about the different layers of security. First was the organization layer, then was the persona layer, then was the objects and fields layer, and finally we had the records layer. Now, we have then seen how profiles and permission sets can be used to define permissions across the bottom three layers. When it comes to the record layer, we've seen how organization-wide defaults, sharing rules, role hierarchy, and manual sharing can open up access to various records. We've then seen how to enforce security using Apex and how Salesforce automatically enforces security when you use APIs and Lightning Data Service adapters in LWC. So this video was only meant to give you a glimpse of all of the security infrastructure in Salesforce, but you need to practice to understand it completely. And that's the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please let me know your thoughts and reactions in the comment section on YouTube. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section as well, and I'll answer them for you. This video is hosted on the Salesforce Developers YouTube channel, which has a ton of great content like intro videos, deep dives, quick takes, code live sessions, and many more on various topics on Salesforce that can help you level up your skills. So please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell icon to get notifications whenever we roll out new content.